Morning. It's Tuesday, July 7th, and back down at the farm looking at some soybeans and checking for weeds. Not supposed to be very much wind today, so if I was going to spray some stuff, today would be a good day to do that. Gonna kind of look things over a little bit here and then check a few other fields and decide if anything is warranted right now. I've walked a little bit here. Nothing sticking up. Got a few morning glories, but not sure there's enough to be worth making a trip with the sprayer, just with the herbicide cost and hassle and running over the soybeans and everything, unless I find some more in other spots. Well, I walked, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes in this field and didn't see any water hemp until this guy. Mostly a few morning glories. I'm not sure there's enough there to be worth spraying. The canopy on the beans is a little bit variable. Right here is kind of the driveway, so they're pretty sparse. You can see there's a few morning glories here and there, but then you get into areas like over here where you pretty much can't even see the rows, and spraying across that, any weeds underneath the soybeans are not going to see any herbicide anyway. So I'm a little bit debating whether it's worth spraying anything, or at least this field, I guess. Gonna look at some more and see what they look like, see what we find. The corn's doing well. We're, I don't know, 6 feet high probably in this particular area, which this is pretty close to the spot where it got frosted off pretty bad and came back. You can see, so this is like what morning glories look like a little bit later in their life stage. They'll vine up. And this is one type. I don't remember the names of the types of morning glories. The other one is down here. One is like an ivy leaf, which I think maybe is this guy. But they'll climb up the corn plants to get sunlight and then make seeds. And not the easiest thing to control. Probably don't rob a lot of yield in most cases, but we kind of try to do what we can to keep them in check. Usually on corn it's the most problematic around the edges on the sides of the field, and a lot of times we'll take the 4-wheeler with some Roundup and go along and just spray it into those outside couple of rows to knock back some of that stuff, which may need to be on my to-do list here for this week or next week also. Over at a different field now, and things look pretty good here. I haven't found any morning glories yet. A little bit of grass on the end rows back here. Looks like we got the volunteer corn killed pretty well. At least I don't see anything sticking up green, and it looks like the clumps, which would probably be an ear. There's a green leaf on that one, but it looks like it has brown edges, so hopefully it'll die. Don't see any water hemp. Nothing sticking up above the beans for sure. There's stems. So this is one that I would have killed or would have sprayed, burned back these upper leaves when I sprayed a couple weeks ago. And it has a few green leaves on it, so it is not totally dead. There was one back here, which I probably am not going to be able to find again now. But it looked like the stem was still green, but the only leaf on it was way down below the soybeans. Some of those may have not gotten total coverage if they were in the row, and sort of blocked by some of the soybean leaves when I sprayed the first time. I don't see anything here that looks like it's worth spraying, but got a few more fields to check. The beans are all really looking pretty good. Getting a little bit of insect damage. There's a bean leaf beetle right there, and lightning bug. There's definitely a few Japanese beetles around. Haven't seen as much damage as that one spot that I took the video of when I was spraying fence lines last week. So these are a 3.9 bean, and looks like they're blooming pretty good. Different soybeans will have different colored blooms, so usually they'll either be white or purple in most cases, at least for the varieties that we raise. The ones at Mom and Dad's were purple. There's another bean leaf beetle. There's actually a few of those around, but I don't see very many weeds, and not really enough damage. There's some Japanese beetles reproducing probably. Yeah, there's a few here too. Usually they'll be worse along the edges of the field, or if I walked out farther, I probably would be less likely to find them. Or I don't know, 30 feet from the edge here right now. But things look pretty good for this point for us. It's a little on the dry side soil moisture wise, but we've been catching some smaller rains in a timely way that things are not struggling too much. There's a water hemp that probably I might be able to kill if I sprayed, or I can just kill it now and maybe save the trouble. There's not really very much out here, so it's kind of hard to justify, spending $6 or $10 an acre. I don't remember exactly what I have in a pass of generic Liberty exactly this year. There's a couple there. Maybe there's more out here than I thought. I don't know. Keep walking, keep looking, do some thinking, figure out a game plan. And sure enough, I found some spots with a bunch of water hemp. So that may change my calculus a little bit. But again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get enough coverage to kill that stuff. Some of these I could probably do some damage to at least. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of this type of stuff. Just right here for some reason. There are quite a few right here though. Well, I was just going to say that I thought this field looked pretty clean, other than the spot up here where I had a little bit of a skip, it looks like. You can see the water hemp sticking up above the corn and or above the beans, and the volunteer corn that's still green right there. But there are a few here also. The rest of the field looked pretty good. There's a water hemp down below, which is one of the ones that's going to be pretty difficult to get herbicide down to. So I'm still debating a little bit. I think probably I'm going to spray a little bit today at least. Maybe stick with my original plan of coming back and hitting the field edges. Yeah, so there's kind of some stuff in here. Some of those you can see got a little bit of a dose, but not good enough coverage to kill them, just based on the brown leaves on top. I don't see any other green volunteer corn or weeds sticking up above the canopy, so hopefully this is a fairly isolated spot. But you can see, basically that's what we risk, is that anything that we don't get killed while it's below can grow up through the soybeans later in the season. And then you have a really hard time killing it with Liberty because you need coverage on all the leaves to get it dead. Like, we can definitely, if I sprayed this, I would burn these back and hopefully the beans would grow over them and that they would not produce very much seed, but it's kind of a crapshoot. Some lamb's quarter there, which it looks like probably was there when I sprayed. Not totally clear though. It's one of those things where you never know if you're doing too much or not enough. I've had some deliberation about whether or not to come back and spray again on soybeans, and I always question if I'm doing too much or not enough to keep the weeds at bay. And it seems like it usually works out okay, so probably I'll kind of spray some and let some go, and that way I'll probably be half wrong, but I won't be all wrong. So, gonna fix an oopsie. Dad hooked the sprayer up. We had it off the tractor last week and he was rearranging some stuff, and thought that it seemed like the drawbar was too close to the PTO shaft. So right now we've got a 1,000 RPM shaft, and you can flip it around to get 540 on this tractor also, but the sprayer is 1,000 PT or 1,000 RPM. We also use this tractor on the big auger to fill the new grain bin, and that's 540, and the drawbar length is different if you're using 540 or 1,000. So I thought that there was something in the sprayer book that said what it was supposed to be. There's a sticker up here on the front of the tractor, and I didn't remember that we moved this when we were doing the auger last fall, but it definitely is in the shorter position. So I guess we're going to move it back. He also thought there was some play in this universal joint at the back of the PTO shaft, which I think there is, that maybe was caused by me not catching that when I hooked stuff up this spring, but it might also just be that I haven't done a very good job of greasing those as regularly as I should be. Anyway, we're going to pull out a bolt up underneath there, I think, and then we should be able to slide that back a couple inches, put the pin back in, and hook everything back up, and then go spray after a bit. So this is the 4th load for the day, so done a little over 100 acres, or around 100 I guess, got a little bit left here on this batch. Nothing too interesting happening really. I haven't seen too many weeds, but going ahead and making a pass kind of around all the edges of the fields and waterways and stuff. Those spots where there usually is stuff, whether or not it's very visible. I haven't sprayed an entire field yet. I might do one that's just about 18 acres or so. It seemed like there was a little more stuff there, but things are going smoothly. The sun's shining, which should work real well for the Liberty kill. I don't know how apparent it will be looking through the dirty window rolling down the road here, but I was noticing a lot of the corn, the leaves are actually rolling up some, which is, I think, a defense mechanism essentially. So when it's hot and dry, it'll kind of do that. So that it has to use less water to keep the plant cool. Have a decent chance of rain in the forecast for Thursday, so here in 48 hours or so, which we definitely could use a drink. I hope that we get some out of it. Well, we're probably pushing the envelope a little bit on the amount of sunshine to get a decent kill, but I think I'm gonna finish what I'm gonna do in the short term today for spraying soybeans. If I'd remembered to rinse the boom out at the last farm, I probably might have waited until tomorrow to spray these last 10 acres, but such is life.